I think the key is to include marginalized people in your stories, but don't make your stories about how they are marginalized, because that's also retelling something, and those people aren't only about that. And there's a rooster going off. I watched a lot of Buffy growing up, a fair amount of Xena and Hercules. I liked Sailor Moon a lot. I definitely grew up watching Saved by the Bell. And I grew up watching Rosie O'Donnell's talk show, which was on after school, and I got home and loved that show. A lot of TV for me as a kid. I think that what did make me feel bad watching TV was that when I was represented, I was one of 3 stereotypes. The Latina woman is always the seductress, the maid, or the like Nuyorican tough girl, which can be an LA tough girl. It's one of those 3. Sometimes they're combined. Sometimes you're a tough girl maid. Sometimes you're a sexy seductress maid. Who knows? You can be any of those. But that's it. You're limited to those 3. And that did really piss me off because I knew that I was a lot more than that, and so was everybody else I knew that looked like me. I never really felt like a minority, and the reason why, I think, is because I grew up in Miami, where I was not the minority. I was part of the majority, which is Cubans. White kids were like, you don't know how to speak Spanish. And that's such a weird way to grow up. And when I first moved to LA, was when I realized that that people looked at my skin color and looked at me before they actually talked to me. That had never happened to me before. I always felt like the majority. So while I didn't necessarily relate to Buffy or to like Cher from Clueless, because I wasn't like a beautiful, rich, blonde that lived in California, I didn't feel like anything, like I was like, yeah, that's me. The geeky girl who takes off her glasses and changes her clothes and puts on some makeup, and then suddenly she's popular and beautiful. And I want to make stuff, and I'm interested in stuff that the girl is beautiful and interesting with her glasses on and without the makeup. Why do you need to continue to see that? Why do we need to be entertained by seeing the same thing over and over again? It's sort of like why pop music can be popular, because if we can recognize immediately what the hook is, then we feel safe. We know it's coming. It's okay. It's all right. And I find it to be much more interesting when we don't know what's coming and when we're seeing something new. Mary Tyler Moore was not of my time at all, but the things that she was fighting for and the ways that she was fighting for them, I see now in my adult life again, so many years later. They're still relevant, the way that she talks to her boss and the way that she fights for what she wants and the way she leaves her boyfriend because she needs to. Those are all really still relevant, and that show was ahead of its time, but it also was very timely. My mom was great and was really strong and was a really great example for me. She was a single mother, so that meant she had to work a lot, which meant that I had a lot of time in front of the TV, as much as a lot of kids do these days. And I mean, these are stories that we're seeing as children, and this is how we look at ourselves in the world and find our place in the world, is by looking outside. And if our TV is the window to the outside, then these stories about women who are thriving and empowered and are going, in some sense of the word, like, this could be you. You could do this.